Hi, so it's September. I work in education, so this is actually just like the single most stressful time of the year. And where I live, fall is very, very beautiful, but to me it feels like it lasts about like 4 minutes and then winter is like 6 months. So, but the way that I see it, it's like you have a choice of either getting excited about fall or just getting a head start on dreading winter. And I have decided to get excited about fall. And so I thought I'd share recommendations of books that are good and feel autumnal in some way. So I have three categories here. It's Venn diagram. All right, we have spooky, campus, and my personal favorite, spooky campus. First, let's begin with a sort of modern classic, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Admittedly, this book is more like creepy and dark than spooky, right? It's a classic dark academia. It's kind of the example of dark academia that I would give to, explain the genre. So it's about this mysterious cohort of like 5 or 6 students who study classics with their one classics professor. The main character wants to study classics and everyone acts like, oh no, you just can't like get into this secret society group, but he breaks in, but then even once he gets in, he feels like there's something going on that he doesn't understand, like that they won't tell him. There's something sinister afoot. Eventually they do become like incredibly close and they all hang out like every single day of the week. And even though this is a very dark book, it actually just made me like really nostalgic for college. Like I wanted to be part of this group of people, even though I don't want to get up to the dark antics that they get up to. But I loved this, even though it's kind of long. Let's see, it's over 500 pages, but I read it really, really quickly. But I will say that this is like an extremely divisive book. I loved it mostly because of the writing. I just thought the prose was so beautiful. And again, I really enjoyed being in this group of people. But plot-wise, like, I will admit there are parts that are kind of boring, and the ending to me did not feel very satisfying. So listen, it's a love it or hate it, but if you're interested, I do recommend it. Next, Catherine House. This similarly is another very divisive book which doesn't have the most satisfying ending or the best plot, but the writing is so good and the vibes are so good. This is a debut and I'm just kind of on the edge of my seat to find out what Elizabeth Thomas writes next. So Catherine House is the name of an elite, very difficult to get into college. Like think, harder than Harvard to get into. Tuition is also 100% free. Room and board, everything 100% free. What's the catch? There's definitely a catch. Once you're there, you're really not in contact with the outside world at all. You can't leave. So again, right off the bat, you can tell something sinister is going on, but you're not sure what. The main character, a lot of people have described her as unlikable. I would say that she's just really depressed and kind of an alcoholic and running from her past. She's also very hot and knows she's really hot. So if you've ever read My Year of Rest and Relaxation, it reminded me a lot of the main character in that book. And like I said, it's pretty clear from the beginning that the main character is running from some kind of past, and maybe some other characters are as well, which makes sense. Why else would you go to this school where you are kind of disconnected from the outside world? So again, plot-wise, not really the best. I think it can kind of be a cheap trick to withhold information from the reader if the main character whose head we're in, right, this is a first-person perspective novel, they have the information, they're just not telling you. It's not my favorite plot device, but I just loved the writing and it was so descriptive and so, again, fall campusy. Like the food and the wine and the tea and the schools and the buildings were all just described in such beautifully sensory terms. The descriptions were just impeccable and beautiful, and I wanted to go to this school in spite of all the dark stuff going on. There's just constant scenes of them being brought like little tea trays, and it made me want to go to Catherine House. Now, in the spooky campus category, I have saved, of course, the best for last, Bunny. This book is extremely spooky. There is literal magic in it, witchcraft. It's set on a college campus. It's set in an MFA creative writing program, which I personally found very entertaining. I thought that the author did a great job of making fun of kind of pretentious writers and pretentious writing culture, and so it was very funny. It was also dark, and the ending is kind of sad. Now that I think about it, similarly to A Secret History, the main character is part of this cohort, but she can't quite fit in. They all call each other Bunny and they're all extremely close. But eventually she does break in and she finds out that sinister stuff is going on. As I describe this is basically The Secret History, but much shorter, much more engaging, with a better plot, more humor, and again, set in an MFA program with lots of like pretentious writing type jokes. Don't want to say much more without giving away the ending, but can't recommend it enough. Now, let's say that you want the autumnal feeling of a campus novel, but you don't want it to be creepy or spooky or involve magic or witchcraft. I have books for you too. So I recently read The All-Night Sun by Diane Zinna. It's kind of a summery book, but summer transitioning into fall, so early September would be a great time to read this one. The main character is a teacher, a high school English teacher. She's lost both of her parents. She doesn't really have any family or friends. She's so lonely, and she connects with a student really strongly, with a student who has also lost a parent, and they form just like a fast, really intense friendship. The student is an international student. She's from Sweden, and she invites the teacher, who's just become a very good friend of hers, to Sweden for midsummer. And the teacher knows that this is kind of really inappropriate, but she's just so lonely and she just loves the student as a friend so much that she goes. So it's kind of an exploration of those teacher-student boundaries, but without anything sexual or anything like that. It's just a friendship, and I thought it did a great job of capturing like really fast female friendship that feels kind of a lot like falling in love, just like you just get so close so fast and hang out all the time, and I really like reading about that. I will warn you that it's definitely a slow burn and a little bit depressing, but again, the prose just really hooked me personally. I personally enjoy books that feel deeply nostalgic, where the main character is perseverating on a particular time in their life. They're wishing they could go back, maybe wishing they could do things differently, trying to make meaning of this really intense time period that has passed. That's just something I personally enjoy, and to me, nostalgia just feels autumnal for some reason. Finally, I'd like to offer at least one not creepy, not spooky, and not depressing campus novel, which would be True Biz. This came out fairly recently. It takes place at a deaf boarding school. It is written by a deaf author as well. The perspective goes back and forth between at least two characters. There's a student who previously has been in mainstream schools. Her parents haven't really offered her the opportunity to learn ASL. She's just started learning ASL, and she joins this community of deaf students, and she's kind of struggling to learn the language and fit in. And then the other perspective is from the head of school, who's dealing with like all kinds of upheavals in the school environment, as well as her mother's dementia and some relationship issues with her wife. Our final category is books that are creepy or autumnal in some way. They are not set in a campus of any kind. First, I would like to recommend a book that you've definitely never heard called Ghost House. It is my poetry chapbook. So I have my second poetry chapbook coming out from Alien Buddha Press on September 25th, 2022. I'm going to be dropping links everywhere once I have them. This book is going to be sold on Amazon, so if you're watching this after the 25th, you could just check the description box below the video or just head on over to Amazon and search for it. To me, it feels like an autumnal book, again, because it's deeply nostalgic, and for some reason that emotion feels very fall to me. And I'm going to make an entire video talking about it, so I'm not going to say too much more here, except I can read the two blurbs from the back of the book. Brian J. Smith says, Ghost House is a collection that no one should do without. Thank you, that's very nice. Once I started, I could not stop. You will not be disappointed. Thank you for writing that blurb, I really appreciate it. And Ellison Renner wrote, in Ghost House, Butler shares personal truths that pull you in and draw your attention to everything around you. You, literally, in many cases, such as in pieces that prompt you to choose how to experience a sunset, dissect #relationship goals, and find meaning in the small things you'd overlook otherwise. These pieces make you appreciate science, the squirrels and canaries and nature around us. In sparse, poignant prose, Butler invites readers to look closely at where they are now and assess what they left behind, asking, haven't you noticed that you've been here before? Wow, self-promotion is really weird. Reading about your own work is really weird. Saying your own last name is really weird. Let's move on swiftly to other book recommendations. The Every Heart a Doorway series feels very autumnal to me personally. It's technically a young adult series, but I don't personally usually enjoy young adult, and I did enjoy these books, so even if that kind of puts you off, I would still recommend giving it a shot. So it's a fantasy series. In this series, there's many characters, right, because each book focuses on different main characters, but each one of the main characters is a child or a teenager who, during their childhood or teen years, stumbled across a door. That's kind of a fantasy trope, but there's an interesting spin on it, which is that the doors kind of find people. So the kids who go through these doorways are kind of misfits in our world, and the worlds that they go to often feel like they fit their personalities better than this world. So the series opens with this school that one of the people who as a child went through a door and came back. She starts the school for these wayward children who have experienced these other worlds and really don't fit in here. Oh, I forgot to mention a really important part, which is that once you're in your doorway world, you can stay or you can leave, but if you leave, you can't really come back. So they have to make these really difficult choices, and a lot of them, they're really happy in their new world, but they miss, say, their family, or they have some tie to come here, but then they come here and they miss the world that they were in. And something I really enjoyed about this is, certainly it's not the only fantasy book to do this, but every world is so different. It's not just like, the world building isn't the building of a single world, it's the building of many different worlds. And every character, based on their personality, went to a totally different world. There are worlds that are really creepy and dark, and worlds that are totally whimsical and full of like candy and really Willy Wonka-esque. There are high logic worlds, there are high nonsense worlds, there's just excellent world building. It is a series, but all of the books are really short, so you could probably read them all in like a month. Next, I would like to recommend Baby Teeth. This book is a thriller. It is extremely creepy. It combines two thriller horror tropes. I wouldn't call it horror, but two tropes of the genre, which are like a demon child, evil child, and husband who doesn't believe his wife when something horrible is happening. So basically, this demon child is home all day with mom, horribly behaved, like not just horribly behaved, but like psychopathic, like violent. But then dad gets home and she's super sweet, and it's like infuriating. I was on the edge of my seat. I read this so fast. That's all I'm really gonna say about it. If you like those two tropes, I mean, I don't love the husband doesn't believe his wife trope, because it's not just a trope, right? It's a trope in real life as well. But it was a really fast read, very creepy and maybe even a little scary, but like not gory, It was a thriller, decidedly, not horror. Next, on the lighter side, once again, we have literally anything by Kelly Link. Kelly Link writes short stories that are in the realm of magical realism, absurdity, and dark humor. They're spooky in the sense that some stories involve like monsters and magic, but it's all very lighthearted and humorous. It's not scary at all. I would describe her work as being like fairy tale-esque, right? Like maybe there's like a sinister, Halloween-y feel to it, but again, not gory, not scary, nowhere near horror. It's just magical realism. The very last book on the list is The Night Circus. I read this a long time ago, so I'm not going to have a ton of details. I remember two things about the actual plot. The first one is that the main characters, who I believe are children, discover this night circus that like pops up at night mysteriously and is gone by morning and is on a seasonal cycle. And they go and they drink like cider, and it's very, again, autumnal, beautiful descriptions. But again, it just like disappears, and so there's something mysterious about it. I also remember there's like a magic battle between a magical girl and a magical boy, and they have to like fight to the death. Honestly, the plot was not very good in my opinion, but the vibes were lovely, the descriptions were lovely. This book feels like drinking a cup of hot apple cider. Like if you just want to sink into some autumnal sensory descriptions set in a, again, mysterious night circus, it is really beautiful. The plot was kind of secondary for me, which seems to be a theme in almost all the books I've talked about today, actually. That's it for now. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you like poetry, please consider buying my collection if it's out by the time you're watching this. Please consider liking the video, or subscribing to my Patreon, or sending me a poem for feedback, because that's something that I do. I hope you have a nice season. I know that it's not fall everywhere. Not everyone has the New England fall that I experience, but whatever the weather is like where you are, I hope you're doing well. Okay, bye.